Some people can't stop thinking about yesterday, and it's destroying their today. The human mind has this weird habit of replaying the past over and over again. But here's what most people don't know about why this happens. Whether someone's stuck reliving painful memories or constantly daydreaming about the good old days, dwelling on the past can shape everything from mental health to daily decisions. Number 1. The brain's replay button. The psychology behind dwelling on the past starts with something researchers call rumination. This isn't just casual thinking about yesterday. According to studies from the University of Liverpool, rumination is when someone gets trapped in a cycle of repetitive negative thinking about past experiences. The brain literally keeps hitting replay on the same thoughts over and over. Here's what makes this so powerful. When someone starts thinking about a negative event from their past, the brain doesn't just recall that single memory. Research shows the human mind is designed so related memories are easy to find. Think of it like pulling one thread and watching an entire sweater unravel. One bad memory triggers another, and suddenly someone's reliving every mistake they've ever made in the span of 5 minutes. Psychologist Susan Nolan Huxema spent years studying this pattern. She developed what's called response styles theory, which explains that rumination is a way people respond to feeling down by focusing repeatedly on their distress symptoms and what caused them. The tricky part is that this response feels productive. People think they're problem solving, but they're actually just spinning their wheels in mental mud. The research gets even more interesting when looking at what triggers this cycle. Studies published in psychiatric journals found that traumatic life experiences don't directly cause depression or anxiety on their own. Instead, these events lead people to ruminate and blame themselves, and that's what creates the mental health struggles. It's not what happened in the past that matters most. It's how someone keeps thinking about it in the present. Brain scans reveal something fascinating about this process. When people engage in rumination, specific areas light up on imaging tests. These areas are linked to self-reflection, emotional processing, and something called the default mode network. This network becomes hyperactive in people who dwell on the past, essentially turning their brain into a machine that constantly churns through old experiences instead of focusing on the present moment. Number 2. The memory distortion effect. Here's something that sounds backwards but is completely true. The memories people dwell on aren't even accurate most of the time. Human memory doesn't work like a video recorder. Every time someone recalls an event, they're actually reconstructing it. And that reconstruction changes based on their current mood and circumstances. Research in cognitive psychology demonstrates that when someone's feeling sad, they're way more likely to remember other sad memories. When they're happy, happy memories come flooding back. This is called mood-dependent memory, and it creates a dangerous loop for people stuck in the past. Someone having a bad day starts remembering other bad days, which makes them feel worse, which triggers even more negative memories. But there's another layer to this. Studies show that when people reconstruct memories, especially emotional ones, they tend to remember central details but lose peripheral information. For negative events, research found that the intensity of negative feelings actually fades faster than positive feelings over time. This means someone dwelling on a past trauma might be remembering a version that's less intense than what actually happened, but their brain fills in those gaps with current feelings and interpretations. Think about a past argument with a friend. The exact words spoken might be fuzzy, but the feeling of hurt stays sharp. Over time, the mind might even add details that weren't there or remove context that softens the blow. This reconstructed memory becomes the version someone dwells on, even though it's not the full truth of what happened. The research also reveals something surprising about positive memories from the past. When people engage in nostalgic reflection, thinking fondly about earlier times, they filter those memories through what researchers call a rose-tinted lens. The brain naturally glosses over negative aspects and amplifies positive ones. According to psychology professor Christine Batcho, this serves an evolutionary purpose. If people remembered things exactly as they happened, including all the pain and difficulty, they might never attempt challenging things again. Number 3. The depression connection. The link between dwelling on the past and depression is stronger than most people realize. According to research published in mental health journals, rumination has been identified as one of the main problems that leads to anxiety and depression. Studies from the University of Liverpool found that dwelling on negative past events is the biggest predictor of these conditions, even more than the events themselves. Here's how this works in someone's daily life. When a person with depression ruminates, they remember more negative things that happened to them. They interpret current situations more negatively. They feel more hopeless about the future. It's like their brain gets stuck in a negative filter that colors everything they see, both past and present. The research measured this connection in concrete ways. People who score high on rumination scales are significantly more likely to develop major depression over time. What starts as occasionally thinking about a past failure becomes a pattern that rewires how the brain processes information. The repetitive negative thinking doesn't just maintain depression either. It actually helps create it in people who weren't depressed before. Studies tracking people over months and years show that exposure to stressful events leads to increased rumination, which then leads to depression and anxiety symptoms. The sequence is clear. Life throws challenges at everyone. Some people process these challenges and move forward. Others get stuck in the replay loop, and that's when mental health starts deteriorating. What makes this particularly challenging is that rumination isn't limited to depression. Research shows it plays a significant role in post-traumatic stress disorder, anxiety disorders, eating disorders, and even substance use problems. Scientists now consider repetitive negative thinking a transdiagnostic process, meaning it contributes to multiple different mental health conditions. One study found that targeting rumination in treatment led to improvements across various symptoms, not just the primary disorder someone was dealing with. Number 4. The problem-solving paradox. People who dwell on the past often believe they're trying to solve problems. Someone replays a failed job interview thinking they're learning from mistakes. Another person analyzes an ended relationship hoping to understand what went wrong. The intention seems productive, but research reveals a troubling paradox. Studies show that induced rumination actually leads to poor problem-solving abilities. When researchers ask people to engage in ruminative thinking and then test their problem-solving skills, performance drops significantly. The repetitive focus on problems doesn't generate solutions. Instead, it inhibits the kind of flexible thinking needed to actually fix issues. Here's why this happens. Problem-solving requires mental capacity. Someone needs to think creatively, consider multiple options, and imagine different outcomes. But when the brain is busy replaying past events over and over, it uses up that mental capacity. Research using cognitive tests found that rumination creates something like mental bandwidth congestion. There's so much traffic running through thoughts about the past that there's no room left for productive forward thinking. The research also shows that rumination biases how people process new information. Someone dwelling on past failures is more likely to interpret neutral situations as threatening or negative. They miss positive opportunities because their attention is focused backward instead of on what's actually happening around them. This creates a self-fulfilling prophecy where dwelling on past problems makes it harder to prevent future ones. Clinical psychologists working with patients found that rumination made therapy itself less effective. Case studies describe clients who would spend entire sessions stuck in why questions. Why did this happen to me? Why can't I let go? Why did someone else act that way? These questions don't have satisfying answers, but the brain keeps asking them anyway, preventing progress on actual coping strategies and behavioral changes. Number 5. The physical impact. The effects of dwelling on the past aren't just mental. Research reveals surprising connections between rumination and physical health. Studies found that people prone to dwelling on negative past experiences report more physical symptoms, worse sleep quality, and even compromised immune function. The sleep connection is particularly well documented. Research shows that rumination before bed, thinking about past events while trying to fall asleep, is strongly associated with insomnia. The brain needs to calm down to transition into sleep, but dwelling on the past keeps it activated and alert. Studies tracking people's thoughts at bedtime found that those who ruminated took longer to fall asleep, woke up more during the night, and reported poorer sleep quality. This creates another vicious cycle. Poor sleep makes it harder to regulate emotions the next day, which increases rumination, which leads to worse sleep the following night. Research tracking this pattern over weeks shows how quickly it can spiral. Within just a few days of increased rumination and poor sleep, people show measurable increases in stress hormones, inflammation markers, and self-reported physical complaints. The stress response plays a key role here. When someone dwells on past stressful or traumatic events, their body can react as if the event is happening again. Heart rate increases, stress hormones release, muscles tense up. Research using physiological monitoring found that ruminating about past negative experiences triggers similar bodily responses as actually experiencing those events. Over time, this chronic activation of the stress response takes a real toll on physical health. But here's the twist that changes everything. Not all dwelling on the past is harmful. In fact, some forms can actually improve mental health and well-being. Number 6. The nostalgia advantage. While rumination focuses on negative past events, nostalgia involves thinking fondly about earlier times. Recent research shows these two forms of dwelling on the past have completely opposite effects on mental health. According to studies on nostalgia psychology, this sentimental longing for the past actually serves important psychological functions. Research from multiple universities found that nostalgia boosts mood, increases feelings of social connection, enhances self-esteem, and even makes people more optimistic about the future. Brain imaging studies show that nostalgic experiences activate areas associated with reward processing and emotional regulation. The brain actually rewards nostalgic thinking by releasing feel-good chemicals. Here's what separates healthy nostalgia from harmful rumination. Nostalgia tends to focus on positive or meaningful memories, especially those involving close relationships and significant life events. Someone might think back to family gatherings, important milestones, or times they felt truly connected to others. Even memories that had challenging aspects get filtered through a lens that emphasizes growth and meaning rather than pain and regret. Studies show that nostalgia often gets triggered during difficult times. When people feel lonely, stressed, or uncertain about the future, they naturally turn to nostalgic memories. Research found this actually helps. Thinking about times when life felt more secure or when relationships were strong provides emotional comfort in the present. One study demonstrated that people exposed to nostalgic stimuli reported lower levels of loneliness and higher feelings of social support, even though they were alone in the moment. The research reveals another fascinating aspect of nostalgia. It's not actually about wanting to return to the past. Instead, nostalgic reflection helps people connect their past to their present and future. Studies found that after engaging in nostalgia, people reported feeling more inspired, more purposeful, and more motivated to pursue future goals. The positive memories served as psychological resources that could be drawn on to face current challenges. Number 7. When past dwelling becomes dangerous. The line between healthy reflection and harmful dwelling isn't always clear, but research identifies specific warning signs. When thinking about the past starts interfering with daily functioning, that's when it becomes a real problem. Studies outline several red flags. If someone spends large chunks of time each day stuck in thoughts about the past, that's excessive. If these thoughts prevent them from engaging with people in the present or completing necessary tasks, that's dysfunction. If the thoughts come with intense emotional distress that doesn't fade, that's a sign of rumination rather than healthy processing. Clinical research shows that maladaptive dwelling on the past shares certain characteristics. It's repetitive, meaning the same thoughts cycle through again and again without resolution. It's intrusive, meaning the thoughts pop up unbidden even when someone tries to focus on other things. It's perceived as unproductive, meaning the person recognizes they're not getting anywhere but can't stop. And it captures mental capacity, meaning it's hard to think about anything else. The time factor matters too. Research found that occasional nostalgic reflection, even several times a week, can be healthy and beneficial. But spending hours each day ruminating on past mistakes or losses correlates strongly with depression and anxiety. The dose makes the poison, as they say in toxicology. A little reminiscence is fine. Constant dwelling becomes toxic. Studies also found that the purpose matters. If someone thinks about the past to learn from it, find meaning in it, or connect with positive emotions, that tends to be healthy. If someone thinks about the past trying to change what can't be changed, understand the unanswerable, or punish themselves for perceived failures, that becomes harmful. The intention behind the dwelling shapes its impact. Number 8. The social connection factor. Research reveals that dwelling on the past has a strong social component that often gets overlooked. According to studies on shared nostalgia, people frequently reminisce with others, and this social context dramatically affects the experience. When people share nostalgic memories with friends or family, studies show increased feelings of bonding and connection. The shared experience of remembering good times together strengthens relationships in the present. Research found that even talking about difficult shared past experiences can bring people closer, as long as the conversation focuses on how they got through it together rather than just rehashing the pain. But social context can also make rumination worse. Studies found that if someone surrounds themselves with people who constantly bring up negative aspects of the past, it pulls their own memories in that direction. The research on social influences on memory shows that what others say about shared events actually shapes how individuals remember those events. Someone might have a neutral memory that becomes more negative through repeated conversations with people who emphasize the worst parts. This creates a clear implication. People struggling with dwelling on the past need to be thoughtful about who they reminisce with. Research shows that individuals who engage in nostalgic reflection with supportive, positive people gain more psychological benefits than those who reminisce alone or with negative companions. The social environment either amplifies healthy nostalgia or deepens harmful rumination. Number 9. Breaking the pattern. For people stuck in harmful rumination, research offers hope. Multiple studies tested interventions specifically designed to break the cycle of dwelling on negative past events, and several strategies showed strong evidence of effectiveness. Cognitive behavioral therapy approaches teach people to recognize when they're ruminating and actively redirect their thoughts. Research found that even brief interventions, teaching people distraction techniques and how to shift attention to the present, significantly reduced rumination levels. One study showed that teaching adolescents and young adults just 3 simple techniques over a short period led to measurable improvements in mood and decreases in anxious and depressive symptoms. Mindfulness practices also show strong research support. Studies found that mindfulness meditation, which trains attention on present moment experiences without judgment, helps break rumination patterns. The key mechanism seems to be that mindfulness increases awareness of when rumination starts, creating a choice point where someone can decide whether to continue down that mental path or redirect elsewhere. Another evidence-based approach involves deliberately scheduling worry time. Research tested having people set aside a specific 15-minute period each day to think about their concerns. Outside that window, when ruminative thoughts arose, they'd remind themselves to save it for the scheduled time. Studies found this technique reduced overall rumination and helped people feel more in control of their thought patterns. The research emphasizes that breaking rumination patterns isn't about suppressing thoughts or pretending the past didn't happen. It's about changing the relationship to those thoughts. Studies show that trying to force thoughts away often backfires, making them more persistent. Instead, effective interventions teach people to acknowledge past events without getting stuck in the cycle of repetitive analysis. Number 10. The evolutionary perspective. Stepping back to look at the bigger picture, researchers have explored why humans even have this tendency to dwell on the past in the first place. From an evolutionary standpoint, the ability to learn from past experiences provided huge survival advantages. Early humans who could remember which foods made them sick, which behaviors led to danger, and which strategies worked in the past were more likely to survive and pass on their genes. The capacity for reflection and learning from experience helped humans adapt to changing environments and solve complex problems. In this light, dwelling on the past served an important function. But research suggests that modern life has created a mismatch. The brain mechanisms that helped ancestors survive now sometimes work against well-being in current environments. Ancient humans faced immediate concrete threats that required remembering specific past dangers. Modern humans face abstract worries and social complexities that the replay mechanism wasn't designed to handle. Studies in evolutionary psychology propose that rumination might be an overextension of adaptive analytical thinking. The ability to analyze past events to predict future outcomes was beneficial, but in complex modern social situations without clear solutions, this analysis becomes repetitive and unproductive. The brain keeps trying to solve an unsolvable puzzle, unable to recognize that some questions don't have satisfying answers. Research also suggests that nostalgia's evolutionary function relates to social bonding and group cohesion. Shared memories and stories about the past helped early human groups maintain connections and pass down important cultural knowledge. The positive feelings associated with nostalgia may have evolved to encourage this socially beneficial behavior. In modern times, nostalgia still serves this function, though perhaps in different forms. The psychology of people who dwell on the past reveals a complex picture. Research clearly shows that repetitive negative thinking about past events, what scientists call rumination, leads to depression, anxiety, poor problem solving, and even physical health problems. The brain gets stuck in a loop, replaying the same memories over and over without reaching resolution. But the research also demonstrates that not all reflection on the past is harmful. Nostalgia, thinking fondly about earlier times, actually boosts mental health, strengthens social connections, and provides psychological resources for facing current challenges. The difference comes down to the quality of the thoughts, the emotions involved, and whether the dwelling moves someone forward or keeps them stuck. Understanding this distinction matters. Someone struggling with dwelling on the past can learn to recognize when they've crossed from healthy reflection into harmful rumination. Evidence-based strategies exist to break these patterns. And recognizing that some forms of thinking about the past are actually beneficial can remove the guilt people sometimes feel about reminiscing. The human mind's relationship with memory and the past is part of what makes people human. The key is learning to engage with those memories in ways that serve well-being rather than undermining it.